Really, really fortunate to be chatting to Elton Davids all the way from the Cape. Like I said to him just before we started this, got a serious bone to pick with him because he sent this cold weather all the way up from the Cape. So Elton, thanks so much for your time this very chilly Friday morning.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about sport, because sport is a necessary component of life that is often overlooked and predominantly overlooked by government in a general space, or the positive impact that sport can play in people's lives and in society.
Absolutely, couldn't agree with you more. And I mean, looking at what you're currently involved with, you're the director of All My Sports South Africa, you're the chairperson of Cape Town Sports Council, and you sit on the board of Cape Town TV. So when do you sleep?
I only need 4 hours, Mark. 4 is enough. Anything more is a bonus.
So Elton, let's talk a little bit about all of these things that you've got going. Obviously, let's start at the bottom of that list, Cape Town TV. I mean, looking at the lineup of Cape Town TV, very much focused on the community of Cape Town, talking about current affairs, news, local sports, all that kind of stuff. Like I said, you sit on the board there. How important does that medium, that platform, serve to the local community?
Look, Mark, Cape Town TV started 10 years ago as a community TV station, which was a locally produced, a local content only station. And from there, it's grown to be able to get onto the DSTV platform right now with all the other community stations. So from that point of view, it has grown significantly in terms of viewership. I mean, we have about 6 million viewers currently. So we still have the terrestrial, what they call the terrestrial views. So if you don't have a DSTV decoder, or you can still get it on your normal TV with just tuning in. And we focus purely on local content in Cape Town and to a lesser degree the Western Cape. And it's all content produced 98% produced in Cape Town for the Cape Town community on a range of different topics, from gender violence, from communication, it's cooking shows, it's religious shows, it's obviously sports shows because I'm on the board. And our license is based on different components. So our license says we need to do 20% sport, 20% of everything. And that's how we kind of got to the model and the programming of the station.
So obviously, the main focus of this discussion is on the sports side. So your involvement in the Cape Town Sports Council obviously has a big bearing on a lot of the sports content that happens on that station, but also in terms of what's happening in the broader sort of Cape Town community. How long has the Cape Town Sports Council been in effect and doing what it's been doing?
This Cape Town Sports Council, in an overview, is the governing body and the eyes and ears of corporate governance for all sport in Cape Town, and should be for all sport in the country. So so the way sport is structured is you have let's start at the bottom. You have a club. A club is a member of a federation. So give me a sport that you're familiar with, Mark.
So let's use boxing.
Okay, so boxing. You have a boxing club in Kalicha here in Cape Town, would be a member of Cape Town Boxing or Western Province Boxing. That association would be a member of Boxing Western Cape, would be a member of, because it's amateur boxing, would be a member of Sanabu.
Yes.
Versus the different component, which is Boxing South Africa, which is professional boxing.
Correct.
Which is a completely different stream. But the Sanabu stream is affiliated to SASCOC, which is affiliated to the International Boxing Association.
And obviously the Olympics.
100%. So at each level, there's meant to be a governing body to oversee, to make sure that the corporate governance, the coaching and everything complies to national standards. And that's what we do as a sports council. So our role is to offer generic information and assist federations on how to do their sport better. And the sporting councils have been around for the last 15 years. And I've been chairman of Cape Town on and off for the last 10 years. So what we do is, so we have 4 general council meetings, an AGM and an SGM every year, where we debate sport matters and update federations. Then we have commissions who are women in sport, coaching, transformation, disability, and now we're going to introduce, because of COVID, we need to have a compliance officer portfolio. And then obviously the MANCO, which is chairman, secretary, treasurer. And we as a team help federations to do what they do, and be often the interface between themselves and government. So, and that's what the Sports Council does in a helicopter view.
Okay. So obviously we're talking a lot of sort of key issues that are very topical, not only in South Africa, but globally right now. We're looking at transformation. We're looking at gender-based sport, or let's call it more the equality within sport between genders, because I'm sure you see it more so than many, that there's a high disparity between what happens in male sport and what's going on with the ladies. And they're often very much sidelined because I think sport in this country specifically is very much still seen as a male-dominated space.
100%, but that is purely because it's propagated by the media, number one. So the media generally focus on male-dominated sport. Number two, if you look at the decision makers in sport, generally it's male-driven and older folk. And the reason, through some of my research, has found that the people who sit on committees are males, for the simple reason that a woman has maternal responsibility. So she comes home, she's got to cook, she's got to clean, she's got to feed the kids, she's got to bath the kids, she's got to make sure the kids do the homework in a general space. The men, you go and play your sport, you do what you need to do. And therefore, and club meetings and exercise and training usually happens in the evening during the week, which excludes women. And that's why, if you then look at it going down the line, men are then chosen into positions of power because they're around in the sporting space where the women aren't. There's a handful of women who are in leadership purely because they are driven as in their personal spaces to be leaders and are leaders. And therefore they get into positions of power. But in the general space, not. And then also the guy who is the chairman is often the person who's either the longest member of the club or is the most well-known person in the club.
Not necessarily the most effective.
Correct. And remember, the person who is the person in power is an elective position. So if I'm a popular oak in my club, you're going to vote for me, Mark, because I make the biggest noise and I buy you a drink at the bar.
Yeah.
Whether I can do the job exactly what you're saying or not is irrelevant. It's the fact that I'm the most popular person in the club, so I become the chairman. Also, if I run a business, I become the treasurer. Whether I have business, whether I have accounting skills or not, it's irrelevant. Because I'm seen as a successful business person, I then become the treasurer, which is often the wrong thing to do, as opposed to appointing someone who has an accounting background from a club. Remember, a club should be run as a business, because you're dealing from a corporate governance point of view, you're dealing with other people's money. It's not your own money to be paying king with or queen.
So, Elton, I want to come back to the whole gender topic, because I had this conversation with the guys regarding MMA. We all talk about the fact that we desperately need gender transformation within sport. But there's this view that by creating a female body, or a body that looks after women's interests in sport, that's not necessarily furthering the aims of bringing equality into sport. It's rather continuing to sideline it, because in a way you're saying that because we've got the separate entity, they will separately deal with women in sport. Your comments?
Agree. Change is best effective from within than from outside. And that's always my view. I'd much rather be on the inside and be negatively responded to, as opposed to sitting on the outside and throwing stones in. Because if you're on the inside, at least you can, the decision makers on the inside understand your point of view and able to potentially shift their view. So definitely I agree with you. Being on the inside is a much better option than sitting on the outside. The counter argument, yes, there should be a separate women's movement, but that should be as part of a commission within MMA. So MMA committee. So the way sports should be governed, due to as part of the National Sport and Recreation Plan, which was adopted in 2009, I think it was, where it says you must have a chairman, secretary, treasurer, a woman in sport. The different portfolios would be a woman in sport, disability, transformation, coaches, an player, athlete, representative, and all of those portfolios should be on the main committee. And when you have all of those, you can then potentially have gender equity on your committee as well. Because the player in sport could be a female. It doesn't have to be a male. I mean, I look at lots of federations where it is in their constitution that the exco consists of a 50-50 or 51 female, 49 male. So it says if the best way to do it is to put it in your constitution, because once it's in your constitution, you mandated to follow that process. But that is where the challenge comes in, is to get the constitution amended, and the center of power is lost by the males, which then becomes an ego thing on another level, which needs to be massaged very gently.
Absolutely, because we all know that male egos always need to be massaged very gently.
100%. Particularly in the MMA space.
Oh, let's not get started. Let's not get started in that space. Moving then up the ranks. I mean, let's talk a little bit now about All My Sports South Africa, because it's almost like the next conversation out of the global sport, because it's all fine and dandy that you've got a Cape Town Sports Council. It's all fine and dandy that you've now fixed transformation, you've fixed the gender equality issue, you've sorted out the disability issues, you've got your various protocols from a health and safety point of view, and all of that has now developed these fantastic crop of athletes. But at the next World Championships or the next National Championships, let's start National Championships, the next National Championships up in Gauteng, you can't send any athletes because there's no money to send athletes on a plane, train, or even buy them a pair of sneakers to walk to Joburg. So these guys and gals who have really, really been putting their all in to be the best don't get an opportunity to showcase those skills. So talk to me a little bit more about exactly what it is that you do at All My Sports South Africa.
So All My Sports South Africa was born out of the challenges faced by federations in the Sports Council, if that makes sense to you. So because I'm the chairman of the Sports Council, I have first-hand encountering with every single sporting code in Cape Town, which is 73 different sporting codes, registered sporting codes. And I have first-hand experienced some of the challenges that they face, both administratively, but also in terms of events. So part of the first leg that All My Sports does, our byline is support for sport. So what we do is, on the one end, we support the federations to manage their events or clubs. So I'm effectively an events coordinator. So you want to have a tournament, I will come alongside you and be your hands and feet to manage your tournament, because you as an executive have a full-time job. So you don't have the time to run around to meet with fencing suppliers, portable toilet suppliers, all of those things. And because we do bulk ordering, we get a preferential rate, which we then pass on to the clubs to make the events more cost effective. And then the proceeds from that, we then use to support athletes, through feeding schemes, providing them food, providing them funding to go to national events. But then subsequent to that, there's also a need for equipment. So what I've started is a collection box in the corporate space. So one of my partners, Wholesome Bread, have gracefully built us a Corex board which goes into corporate space. You come to work, Mark, on Monday, you bring your old trainers, you bring your old kiddies, cricket bats, whatever sporting equipment you have. It then gets collected into this box. You dump it in there. The receptionist phones and says, listen, we have a box full of stuff. We collect it. We clean it, we repurpose it, whether it's an old sports bra, whether it's an old gym tights, anything. We collect it, we clean it. And because we deal with these athletes, we then know where the needs are. So there may be a budding first level cricket player who needs a cricket bat. We will get these bats and say, oh, here's a Gun and More cricket bat. Here you go, my boy, here's a bat for you. And he's then able to further his opportunities because he now has equipment to do it. We kind of look at the entire holistic athlete, not just transport, not just food, but in terms of equipment as well, because that is the next big challenge. You look at when in 2011, when Kader Asmal was the then Minister of Education, he changed education to be outcomes based, and he removed sport, extramural sport, out of the curriculum and made it part of the life skills program.
Yes.
You and I, when we were at school, and we're going to give our ages away, we went to school, you had phys ed or PT in a white shorts, a white t-shirt, and sand shoes, and
Yes.
you played all the different codes of sport, right?
Yes.
No school at this point has that equipment anymore. They don't have a pommel horse, they don't have cricket bats. None of those things have all disappeared out of the school space. So how do we then take an athlete who doesn't have a background in sport to go to further and be the next national champion? And that is part of the problem we have in South Africa. So we need to go back to basics. And if you look at the long-term participant development program, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this concept that was populated and brought to South Africa by a guy called Ispan Valier.
Yes.
Where sport, every focus of your, if not every focus, every age group of your life is characterized by a certain number of hours that you need to be spending in terms of training. So let's use your boxing example again. So between the ages of 3 and 5, the child learns micro skills, how to walk, how to run.
Yes.
Then from 6 to 9, they learn bigger skills, how to throw a ball, how to catch a ball, kinesthetic awareness, what's happening around me. From 10 to 15, they then start engaging in sport-specific techniques of training. So in boxing, they then learn how to jab, how to lunge, and all of those kinds of things. Come 18 to 20, they then go into the competitive phase. 21 to 25 is their high performance phase. Then from 25, they then move into recreational space. That's called the journey of sport life. So how do we then implement that for all sport across the board at school level? And we can't, because we don't have A, the skills at teacher level, B, we don't have the equipment. So all my sports is there to try and assist federations, clubs, individuals with their journey along the path to get them to high performance.
But obviously that sort of poses a bigger question, or could I say a bigger challenge, from the perspective that you need to have enough clubs within a decent enough radius of many of these kids, because unfortunately we're dealing with a lot of disparity still in South Africa, with a lot of youngsters don't have access to transport. And because, like you say, it's been removed out of the school curriculums, a lot of this training is now taking place late afternoon into the evenings. And the last thing you need is young kids having to walk home late at night after their training sessions, when it's probably the most unsafe for them.
Agree, but also the fact that most of them, if you look at the poorer communities, would not have had food during the day. Now you're expecting them to come to an afternoon training session and train on an empty stomach with no food. They don't have the capacity mentally to stay focused because their brains haven't been fueled. B, physically, you're working on almost zero tank where the light is already flashing. So how are you going to get the best out of that athlete? And you're right, that's part of the challenge that we need to overcome in South Africa. And because government doesn't see sport as a game changer in society, it is lower down on the priority scale. If you look at the budgets of government, which departments consume the most budget? Transport, medical, housing, infrastructure, social development, and then sport. Number 6, number 7 on the priority list. So the budget is way down there. Whereas if you turn it the other way around, all those other social ills and the medical infrastructure will be less utilized if people are more active in sport, because they are more occupied, and there's more. We then create more role models, positive role models, as opposed to negative role models. It's easy, and I mean, I've seen it on TV. You look at some of the local communities here and around the country. The gangsters are now running feeding schemes. Why? Because they see they're pulling people into the system to say, listen, man, this is the life. I can give you what you want, and I'm now become the hero. Whereas we're not celebrating our local heroes in sport. to be able to turn kids around and say, but I want to be like Hilton Langenhoven. I want to be like Rocco van Rooyen. I want to be like a Chad de Clos. I want to be like a Shawnee Jacobs. You know, so we're not using the positive role models to go and improve the perception that sport can change lives, as Nelson Mandela said.
Elton, I want to come to another point as well with you quickly, is this little thing called COVID-19 that has disrupted us now for what, going on 12 weeks. What's the impact that you've seen down in the Western Cape? Because, you know, from my conversations and my interactions with a lot of athletes, particularly in the combat sports space, I've seen an inordinate number of gyms closing down, training facilities, literally. A lot of business owners have literally said, I'm done, I'm gone, I probably will never come back. A lot of athletes have lost jobs in terms of their companies having closed down, working for small, medium enterprises, and obviously not having jobs. They're going to struggle to be able to train. If gyms have closed down, athletes are now going to have to travel further to go and train if they are in the position to keep on training. And then we've seen government put a paltry 150 million on the table to say, let's see what we can do, but we're going to divvy that up between sports, arts, and culture. What's been the impact of it down in the Western Cape?
Mark, it's been huge. There's been lots and lots of people selling their gyms, 100%. I mean, I was on Facebook just before our interview, and also a good friend of mine has closed his gym because he doesn't foresee gyms opening in the near future. Virgin Active is, as you know, the biggest gym in the country. They have changed their whole operational procedure. No towels allowed in the gym. They will, and you need to wipe down everything. I mean, it's all over on their website. They brought in a whole new procedure that will roll out as soon as they allowed. When I went to gym just before lockdown, we were only allowed 100 people in the gym. That's great. But for me as an instructor, when I walk into my spinning class, I may only have 3 people in my class because there's 93 other people in the gym. So my spinning class is now impacted from that perspective. From a high performance perspective, now that I literally a few minutes ago received the minutes and the government gazette that was passed yesterday, where some codes are now being allowed, like I'll read it to you: archery, athletics,
I saw it.
Right? Fly
fishing, chess, volleyball, cricket. You know, some of them are absolutely ridiculous. I mean, pigeon racing. Pigeon racing is allowed, but wow, it's mind blowing.
Yeah, for sure. Weightlifting is not allowed. I had a phone call now a minute ago from weightlifting. Why are we not on the list? You know, so and some of those athletes are preparing for what was meant to be the Olympics this year. So how do we then? And guys are training at home. And let's be realistic. I train at home, and I've run Facebook exercise classes for most of lockdown, for some private clients and public, and it's not the same. Yeah, I don't know that my athletes are doing what I'm telling them to do because I can't see them. I'm giving them a workout. Whether they're doing it correctly is my next problem. From a massage point of view, when I go and massage my clients are not telling me, but I hurt myself doing this, that, and the other during exercise at home. Because if you remember, in the first 2 weeks of lockdown or level 5, you weren't allowed to leave your property. Yes. So lots of people were running around their gardens, and many of them have picked up injuries because of the twisting and turning in the. And I'm now as a massage therapist having to go in and repair that damage. So there's huge implications of COVID-19 from a physical perspective on people's bodies. But the fact that we're not going to have sport in a general space is causing lots of negativity, but there's lots of positives that's come out of it. Like, as an example, there are now virtual running races, virtual cycling races. So on my website, you would have seen that I'm hosting an event for a running club called Omidrai Running Club, where you enter and you've got 7 days to do a 5-kilometer run. Whether you do it a kilometer a day, you go and you do your 5-kilometer run. And part of the money goes to charity. So from that perspective, there's a whole new opportunity in sport that is now almost like a phoenix rising out of the ashes of COVID-19 to be the next opportunity from a sporting business perspective. But from an athlete perspective, it's killing sport in a general space, because you and I are social, genetically social beings to be able to want to interact with you. So now I can't give you a hug and I can't high five you. You look at the German Bundesliga and all the sports, the guys can't go and give you a high five. They can't hug you when you score a goal anymore. You know, it's those kinds of things that changes how we see things in sport and how we do things. You now need to have a compliance officer who needs to make sure that everything is sanitized before, during, and after your participation. How difficult that's going to be, how much more cost that's going to be for federations becomes the next conversation.
Absolutely. I think we could probably sit here for a week talking about all of these various impacts and do they make sense? How irrational are they? And I mean, we could talk about the irrationality of what's happening in football probably until the Premier League starts next week. But the reality is it is what it is. Your point on aspects of sport being killed by all of this this lockdown is a huge one. But so I know your time's very, very valuable. So I want to leave you with this, or ask you a final question. With all of this negativity taking place around sport, what is your advice to young athletes during this time to keep this in check, to keep the heart and the passion going, so that when we're allowed back, tackling, playing sport like we used to, that everything gets back on track as fast as possible?
Look, the biggest thing for me is that athletes need to understand that they are the CEOs of their own business. And if you understand that you can only control what you can control. You can't control the environment. You can't control what people say, what people do. You can control how you respond, which will determine the outcome of that interaction. So my advice to athletes is focus on your own game. Stay in your own lane. Focus on what you can control right now. If your goal is to be the best striker, go on the internet, find drills that will help you to be the best striker. Whether it's hockey, whether it's netball, whether it's cricket, whether it's baseball, find the skills that you can find of as many training programs that you can, and try and harness those skills right now. But make sure that you do it correctly. Bad practice and bad repetition equals a bad outcome. So try and get the skill right from the very beginning. Perfect practice makes a perfect outcome. And if you can implement those skills, so if you're batting, let's take baseball. If you're batting and your swing needs to be with a step forward, make sure that you step correctly. Even if you do that drill a million times, make sure that you break the skill down, do it in different components, get the skill right. So when you get onto the baseball field, you can then be able to hit your first ball almost as a home run because you mastered the skill. Then the second component would be, in my head, from a psychological perspective, do imaginary game playing. So visualize, close your eyes, visualize you hitting the ball, visualize your body position, visualize your opponents, and do match play through the game in your head. And when I was at the Youth Olympics, one of the things that I did, one of the techniques that I did with the athletes was imagine, close your eyes, imagine biting on crossing the finish line, winning the Youth Olympics title. You're standing on the podium and you get this gold medal. Bite on it. Feel what that cold medal feels like in your mouth. And imagine that and get that sense of feeling of what success is like in your head. Then go and open your eyes and try and implement that and live that experience. And that's how we need to think about and visualize life and on the sports field all the time.
Absolutely sound advice. Elton Davids, thank you so much for your time this morning. I can see this is going to be the start of a heck of a lot of conversations with you to better know what's going on in sport in the Western Cape. Once again, thanks for your time.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Lekker. Cheers.
Cheers.